Our installment piece is called The Sound of Equality, and the idea was developed by Article 25 on human rights. The article states that all people should have the right to a standard of living adequate for the health and well-being of himself and of his family, including food, clothing, housing and medical care and necessary social services, and the rights to security in the event of unemployment, sickness, disability, widowhood, old age, or other lack of livelihood in circumstances beyond his control. United Nations, 1948. After much discussion with group members, we decided that we would like to create an art installment that highlights to children that inequality exists all around the world, and that not all people have the access to basic human rights. Art installments are a helpful new approach to engage students, allowing them to start thinking more creatively about cross-curriculum links, such as maths, science, and in our case, humanities. Stavridi, 2015. Art installments provide a unique way of engaging students emotionally, fostering critical thinking, and provides a stimulating learning environment. We believe that art installments is the best way of communicating and teaching human rights because it is interactive and encourages critical thinking. Our art installment, called The Sound of Equality, will focus on the curriculum area of humanities. Human rights are important to teach children through the humanities curriculum strand because it encourages students to engage and think critically about contemporary issues, where they are positively encouraged to develop points of view and positively contribute to the local and global community.
Article 25 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights most closely relates to the civics and citizenship curriculum, as the curriculum explores multicultural and socio-economic societies. The key rationale behind the civics and citizenship curriculum is the education of active citizens, as mentioned in Peterson and Bentley 2016. Peterson and Bentley state that the justice-oriented citizen adopts a critical stance to structural inequalities and processes and seeks to bring about change. Civics and citizenship is often seen as a set of cross-curricular capabilities rather than an established discipline, as mentioned in Schultz, Fralian and Ainley 2013, and therefore we have been explicit in what is being measured in our installation. Civics and citizenship is associated with the knowledge and understanding of concepts such as support for gender equality and equality amongst ethnic groups, and self-beliefs such as interest and political self-efficacy, as mentioned in Luaglo 2012, as cited in Schultz, Fralian and Ainley 2013. Civics and citizenship aims to ensure students develop a lifelong sense of belonging to and engagement with civic life as an active and informed citizen in the context of Australia as a secular democratic nation with a dynamic, multicultural and multi-faith society. Knowledge, understanding and appreciation of the values, principles, institutions and practices of Australia's system of democratic government and law, and the role of the citizen in Australian government and society. Skills necessary to investigate contemporary civics and citizenship issues and foster responsible participation in Australia's democracy. And the capacities and dispositions to participate in the civic life of their nation at a local, regional and global level. Through the installation, students and others will be exploring the nature of the diversity of citizens in our nation and those in other countries. The nature of equality and equal rights is something that affects different people in Australia and on a larger scale, those in third world countries. Getting students to acknowledge that not all people receive their basic human rights such as food, shelter and medical care is important, and increasing this awareness in students is important to enact change in the world and sensitivity to those who do not receive equal rights. Other cross-curricular links we found for our article included geography. The geography curriculum aims to ensure that students develop a sense of wonder, curiosity and respect for places, people and cultures and environments throughout the world. The capacity to be informed, responsible and active citizens who can contribute to the development of a world that is environmentally and economically sustainable and socially just. Our installation is connected to critical and creative thinking. The critical and creative thinking capability aims to ensure that students develop understanding of thinking processes and an ability to manage and apply these intentionally. Skills and learning dispositions that support logical, strategic, flexible and adventurous thinking, and confidence in evaluating thinking and thinking processes across a range of familiar and unfamiliar contexts. The ethical capability curriculum also links to our installation, and it aims to develop knowledge and understandings and skills to enable students to analyse, evaluate ethical issues, recognising areas of contestability, identifying the basis of ethical principles and ethical reasoning, and to engage with the challenges of managing ethical decision-making and action for individuals and groups, and cultivate open-mindedness and reasonableness. The interactive component of our installation links very nicely to those ideas. The intercultural capability aims to develop knowledge, understandings, and skills to enable students to demonstrate an awareness of and respect for cultural diversity within the community, reflect on how intercultural experiences influences attitudes, values, and beliefs, and recognise the importance of acceptance and appreciation of cultural diversity for a cohesive community. Our installation uses the power of using artistic images from different cultures to change students' perception of cultural differences, thereby facilitating the development of attitudes of respect towards different ethnic and cultural groups. As mentioned in Da Silva and Villas-Boas 2006. The personal and social capability curriculum aims to develop knowledge, understandings and skills to enable students to recognise, understand and evaluate the expression of emotions, demonstrate an awareness of their personal qualities and the factors that contribute to resilience, develop empathy for and understanding of others, and recognise the importance of supporting diversity for a cohesive community, understand how relationships are developed and use interpersonal skills to establish and maintain respectful relationships, and work effectively in teams to develop strategies to manage challenging situations constructively. Our installation aims to challenge these ideas within the student while they are interacting with the installation. Through interacting with the installation, students will be looking at ideas from a different perspective and using skills to establish and maintain those respectful relationships for the diverse people in the community. We've also found links to the science curriculum. The science curriculum aims to ensure that students develop an interest in science as a means of expanding their curiosity and willingness to explore, ask questions about, and speculate on the changing world in which they live. An ability to solve problems and make informed, evidence-based decisions about current and future applications of science while taking into account ethical and social implications of decisions, and a solid foundation of knowledge of the biological, chemical, physical, earth and space sciences, including being able to select and integrate the scientific knowledge and methods needed to explain and predict phenomena, to apply that understanding to new situations and events, and to appreciate the dynamic nature of science knowledge. These last points link to the musical and sound elements of our installation and the production of noise as a representation of equality through the different or similar tones created.
The process of putting together our art installation. Firstly, we received our box and read and discussed the human rights article. We brainstormed what we thought the human rights article was about and put together a still frame of the materials we would like to use. We chose materials and colours that reflect each aspect mentioned in the human rights article to try convey a message of what our basic human needs are. This might be a useful activity for teachers to work on with students. A teacher might like to give different materials to each group and ask them to use the materials to put together their image of the human right. Teachers can ask students to explain their findings or think. Secondly, we discussed the idea of having a juxtaposition in our final piece. This was to show the difference between someone who had access to all their basic needs and someone who didn't. We discussed having a seesaw moving up and down every time a human right was given to a person, showing that people with basic needs tend to get ahead in life. In a classroom, a teacher might use this picture to show children the differences between people living around the world. A teacher can then use this as a stimulus for a basic writing task. Thirdly, we put together a claymation of our second idea. The claymation showed what we had discussed in the previous session about juxtaposition. We decided to have the first and the last still frames the same to show a repetition of the cycle for some people. When we watched the claymation, we reflected on how difficult it would be to use this as an art installation. Now, it would be very difficult for students to interact with the art piece. We then decided to change our art installation to a piece with 5 glass vases, which would be labelled person 1 to 5. To make our installation interactive and play-based, we decided that we would allow each participant to come up to the glass vases and select 3 people they would like to give one basic need to. The participants decide how they distribute their rights and whether to give all cups to one person or distribute across 3 people. The process would repeat for all basic needs. Finally, we needed to make our design appealing to our target audience, which is students from prep to grade 6. Firstly, we made it visually appealing by having a slideshow of people on the interactive whiteboard from all different races, religions, cultures, gender, and age groups. Secondly, we made it visually appealing by using different food colourings for each basic need, which means that no vase or person represented would look the same. We added sound by allowing the participants to move a drumstick over their glasses after pouring in each basic need. When a glass is empty, it produces a sound lower pitch, and when a glass is full, it produces a high pitched sound. This represents that a person who hasn't had basic needs will have a lower pitched sound, meaning sadness, while a person who has most of their basic needs met will produce a high pitched sound, which often reflects happiness. However, the most important aspect of our design is that it's interactive. A teacher might find our resource useful because it's easy and cost effective to put together in a classroom. However, it covers many different curriculum areas and can be used for multiple purposes. Students could also create their own installations, and a teacher could use this as an example for the class.
So, how does this art installation reflect pedagogy and educational paradigms? Firstly, our art installation caters for students from multiple intelligences. Students are able to engage with the installation by being allowed to choose what water to add to each jar and by being allowed to play a sound against all the jars which meets the needs of bodily kinesthetic intelligence, Gardner 1983. The installation also caters for students who have spatial intelligence or are musically intelligent by allowing them to work with different sounds and by allowing them to be part of the installation. Secondly, our art installation is a piece that integrates curriculum by allowing students to explore science, humanities, and the arts. According to Heron and Reason, this interrelationship of curriculum areas allows students to appreciate that art requires consideration from many different perspectives and that deeper learning can take place because the subjects aren't isolated. When linked with humanities, our art installation can also encourage students to feel empathy for marginalised social or historical groups. Our art installation allows students to engage in play-based learning as they can play with the water and sounds. This type of learning is important for students to develop exploration skills and cultural appropriation. Finally, our art installation piece is highly based on the participatory inquiry approach as highlighted by John Heron. This approach has been followed as the inquiry and critical thinking is initiated by the facilitator. However, the students can inquire more by becoming a part of the art installation and its process. This leads to positive actions in social sciences and can promote student understanding of human flourishing. Bertolt Brecht said that art is not a mirror to hold up to society, but a hammer with which to shape it. Art installations provide an opportunity to communicate complex ideas more effectively and evoke a deeper response from the audience by connecting with them emotionally rather than factually. While this is an important component of communicating our thoughts and ideas about equality, the theme of our installation, it also allows us to share our position on using sustainable practices and helps to shape the expectations of the school community. Our installation was designed with sustainability at the front of our minds, both in terms of the environment and the longevity of our piece. We have opted for materials made of glass rather than plastic and have used reusable items. For example, if the installation was to be deconstructed, the jars could be repurposed to hold pencils or other classroom items. In the school setting, we would have the installation set up outside so that we could collect rainwater to fill the bucket. Initially, we decided against using such a valuable resource in our installation, but felt that the impact the sounds the water would produce, as well as the visual aesthetics of the colours mixing in the water, would be too much of a loss. So, instead, we chose to collect the water from the rain. By implementing this idea, we found an additional bonus. Each time it rains, the bucket will be refilled and the installation will begin its cycle once again, making it an ongoing process that can be interacted with endlessly. It also linked well to one of the key elements of our equality installation. Until it rains again, we only have so much to share, and we need to consider how we distribute these resources fairly in order to work towards equality.
I think our installation went really well. There was a lot of engagement and a lot of people understood the ideas that were behind it. I like the fact that all the people weren't equal, and that led to a really good discussion.
I really liked the way our installation went. Everybody in the class really got engaged and involved in the whole process. It was fascinating that it didn't turn out how we anticipated it to, with all the jugs becoming equal, but I think that really led to a different discussion than what we had planned originally.
I was quite surprised that people responded differently than we did on our trial run. They were more focused on filling up the jar than sharing the liquids out equally, and less people selected the red colour, which impacted on the colours that were produced in the jars. If we were to recreate the installation, it would be interesting to use different shaped jars, as was suggested in our feedback, to see if that changed the way people responded. I also think that if the jars were made of thinner glass, that might have produced some more contrasting sounds, which also might have been interesting. But overall, I was really pleased with how our installation came together. It was great that everyone engaged with it, and it certainly prompted the conversation that we had intended. So it was a success.
It was really good to see everyone participating with the installation and listening to the sounds that they could make when they tapped on the jars and physically hear the difference in what was inside them.